Well, it is an uncertain time for women in Afghanistan. This week, their government is supposed to start the Taliban in an effort to bring is going to bring in the peace agreement with the Taliban. But the Taliban is known for repressing women and girls, and there is no telling where women stand in the conversation. Jennifer Glass brings us the perspective from Kabul. Jennifer, we talked about this last week a bit when that deal was signed with Mike Pompeo and the Taliban there present. Let's talk about what part, if any, women have in this peace process.
Well, they were not part of those talks, those 18 months of talks between the United States and the Taliban. That was very worrying. And now Afghan officials and the Taliban are supposed to start talking in the coming days. And the question is, what role will women have in that? They want to make sure that they're represented. As you mentioned, the Taliban were a repressive regime. When they were in power, women were not allowed to go to school. They weren't allowed to go out on the streets unaccompanied. They had to wear burqas. They had to be covered. They couldn't have jobs or careers. It was a very, very dark time for Afghanistan. Women say things are different now. Many of them are educated. There's a whole generation of women who never knew rule under the Taliban, who've gone to university, who are ministers, who are members of parliament, who run their own businesses. But that's largely in the cities, of course. And they are very worried about what might come next. They want to make sure that their rights will be guaranteed, whatever is the next step in this process.
So let's talk about what that next step might be and what it might bode for women.
Well, right now things are very complicated politically. Tomorrow, we're expecting both incumbent President Ashraf Ghani, who was named the winner in September's presidential elections, to be inaugurated. His political rival has said those results were fraudulent. He has declared himself the winner as well, and he is having an inauguration too. So a political division here, making things even more difficult as the Afghan government moves forward to having talks with the Taliban. They're supposed to put together a delegation for intra-Afghan talks, we believe perhaps in Norway, perhaps somewhere else, where the Taliban and Afghans are supposed to work out a roadmap for the future of the country, hopefully a roadmap to peace in the country. That is the intent. That was the intent of the U.S. Taliban deal, and that is what everybody would like to see moving forward. But there are a lot of unknowns, a lot of moving parts, political problems here in Kabul, political problems that many, especially women, are concerned that the Taliban might exploit.
As you say, Jennifer, that agreement meant to develop peace in the country, and yet even after having signed it, there was violence that was attributed to the Taliban. What is the state of play when it comes to the violence on the ground?
Right now, everything is very much in flux. We saw an unprecedented 9 days of reduction of violence where the U.S. and the Taliban and Afghan forces, nobody attacked anybody. The U.S. deal was signed. The Americans were hoping that the reduction in violence would continue. On Monday, so 6 days ago, the Taliban said they would start launching attacks again, and they did so on Afghan security forces. On Tuesday, we saw the Americans launch an airstrike against Taliban's attacking Afghan forces. Right now, sporadic attacks are happening across the country, and just in the last few hours or so, the Afghan Defense Ministry indicating that its forces who have been on defensive positions trying to ensure conditions that some sort of talks and process can go forward might again go on the offensive if the Taliban continue to attack Afghan security forces and police across the country.
Jennifer, thanks for this. Reporter Jennifer Glass reporting from Kabul.